Although Ncba is the nation's largest cattle industry organization, policymaking actually begins at the state and regional level across the United States. Russell Nemeth spoke with Ncba Policy Chair Todd Wilkinson about this grassroots process.
Well, thank you, Kevin. You know, at the recent summer business meeting, cattlemen and cattlewomen from across this country met to set the beef industry policy priorities for the 2021 fiscal year. Joining us now to talk more about the process is Todd Wilkinson, the chair of Ncba's Policy Division. And Todd, first thing out of the chute today, let's go ahead and have you explain how Ncba develops policy and why it's important.
You know, a lot of people don't understand how we do policy, and it's kind of fundamental that they do, because Ncba's policy comes from that cow-calf producer, that feeder, that stocker, the man or the woman out in the pasture or out in the plains. So they literally bring their ideas, their plans, their desires for policy to their state affiliate. The affiliates send it on to Ncba into the committee structure, and the committee structure debates it, modifies it, changes it, passes it, whatever the membership elects. But it's much like a processing hamburger. You put things in on the top, and you go through the process, and we come out with a membership-based plan or policy, as the case would be, and it really works because the average producer gets their voice in the process. We are not a top-down driven policy organization. We're bottom up, and that's one of the reasons I'm an Ncba member today.
Well, with that said, what are some of the top policy issues, Todd, Ncba is focusing on in 2021?
Well, of course, one of the main ones that's been the topic of a lot of conversation lately has been market price discovery, the issues with packer capacity. We simply lack sufficient shackle space across the country with packers to be able to process and get a competitive demand always for the producer. So we want to increase that capacity. Some of the other issues that are certainly high on the list, that COVID has changed our world. CFAP payments, PPP issues, frankly, acronyms that I've never heard of before have all become highly relevant to the producers today. Traceability. I continue to see that traceability for animal disease purposes is becoming more and more relevant. I mean, COVID really emphasized and showed us how a pandemic can affect the global economy. You take that to a foot and mouth type situation, and you know what would happen with the beef industry. So those are just a couple of the topics that are relevant day in, day out. I could list 50 or 100 that Ncba is constantly working on, but it's a changing dynamic, Russell. I just can't emphasize how much the world has changed from the policy standpoint because of COVID, all in the last 6 months.
Well, absolutely, Todd. So I think next I'd like you to maybe explain why it's so important to have an organization like Ncba that represents all segments of the beef industry.
The biggest reason to have all segments there is so you get input from everybody. You know, if we just live with the world with the aspect of the feeder or the aspect of the cow-calf producer, and we don't put all those people at the table, we're going to lose part of the dynamics and the ability to move the industry forward. So having everybody at the table really becomes a key function of Ncba. And so often we focus on just a little segment as a producer, me as a cow-calf operator, me as a feeder, want to focus on just my area. But to really define the beef industry, we have to have all the players at the table and all the people participating.
You know, Todd, my next question kind of goes hand in hand with your answer on this one, but with what was just said, why is a strong membership base for Ncba so important back in Washington, D.C. as well?
Really, you have to look at what is Washington, D.C. doing. They're representing, supposedly, I sometimes question it, they're representing us, the producers. And unless they're hearing from the membership, the producers themselves, they don't know what we need or what the issues are. So it's the members and their ability to communicate and join and convey that information up through Ncba that inform Washington. And unless we have a big membership base, and unless we have a lot of people participating, you know, I'm not just talking about somebody signing on a piece of paper that says they want to be a member. I'm actually talking about somebody that takes the time to shoot an email, to communicate their issues, to become part of an organization, and we then can carry that message to Washington. And when Washington hears a combined, unified message, they will respond. Ncba has demonstrated time and time again the power of the producer.
And Todd, before we let you go today, I'm anxious to know why you volunteer so much of your time to leadership roles in the beef industry.
Well, it's probably cliche, but it's a motto I live by. And that is, if you're going to be involved in an industry, if you're going to be involved in trying to better the organization that you're living, your way of life with the cattle industry, you have to be prepared to do more than just talk the talk. You have to be prepared to walk the walk. And I truly believe that motto. None of us, I think there's this big conception out there that if you get paid to be involved in Ncba leadership, well, I tell you, that's the opposite. It's very true. Your reward doesn't come in a monetary form. It comes from seeing results. And I just can't express how pleased that I am to see the results that can come from a grassroots organization when people take the time to be involved. And I just encourage everybody to be involved. Don't let somebody else set the table for your organization or for your industry. You be involved, you communicate, and be a part of Ncba, because we can make a difference.
Well, we're sure glad that you do take all that time to volunteer, not just for the Ncba, but also for the entire U.S. beef cattle industry. Todd, thank you so much, as always, for joining us here on Cattlemen to Cattlemen today.
Been my pleasure.